Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
President Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, making history. He says the golden age of America has begun.
During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
The inauguration took place inside the Capitol building for the first time in 40 years after bitterly cold weather was forecast. In an unprecedented last-minute move, the outgoing Joe Biden issues a preemptive pardon for 5 members of his family. He said to stop them being targeted by baseless and politically motivated investigations. Within minutes of becoming president, Donald Trump announced a raft of radical changes covering everything from immigration, the economy, gender, to his plans to send astronauts to Mars. What will this second Trump presidency mean for the United States and for the world?
In our other main news tonight, a teenager has pleaded guilty to the murders of 3 girls he stabbed to death at a dance class in Southport last July. Alice da Silva Aguiar, Elsie Dot Stankham and B.B. King were killed by Axel Rudakubana in the attack. He also admitted the attempted murder of 8 other children and 2 adults and a terror offence.
Journalists will look north in half an hour's time. Further delays to the redevelopment of Leeds General Infirmary. And drivers in Yorkshire are being warned about a scam where they pay for parking using their mobile phone.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6 live from Washington, where Donald Trump has just been sworn in for a second term as the 47th President of the United States. In his inaugural speech, he promised to put America first and create a nation that is proud, prosperous and free. The ceremony has been held indoors in the Capitol's rotunda due to the freezing temperatures here, though in this sunshine it really doesn't feel that cold today. President Trump will soon sign dozens of executive orders and actions. Within minutes of becoming president, he had already outlined a raft of huge changes for America that will have a ripple effect right across the world. We'll be looking at some of the many, many plans he has already announced and the impact that they will have. But first, our North America editor, Sarah Smith, looks at how this historic day has unfolded.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
For Donald John Trump, this is not just a solemn oath of office. This is vindication. This is victory. As he returns to office after 4 dramatic years out of power. Former presidents are here, as is customary, to pay respect, something Donald Trump refused to do 4 years ago. Both of the women that he defeated, Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Kamala Harris in 2024, are watching. Joe Biden beat Donald Trump once, but could not keep him out of power this time. A collection of the richest men in the world, tech billionaires, are giving the new president their backing. All of them gathered inside the Capitol rotunda that was invaded by violent Trump supporters on the 6th of January 2021. It has been a long journey back to the centre of power. Donald Trump survived multiple criminal indictments, 1 conviction and 2 assassination attempts to perform the ultimate political comeback. Now he has a bigger mandate and an even bolder plan for America. but he still can't quite manage to kiss his wife.
The golden age of America begins right now.
He's making big promises about how he hopes to transform America.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
He attacked what he claimed was a corrupt and incompetent government under Joe Biden, saying he had to defeat the odds to be re-elected.
Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
The promises he made on the campaign trail now being repeated in a somber presidential tone, beginning with his signature issue, immigration.
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
He will also declare a national energy emergency to allow for more drilling for oil and reverse Joe Biden's climate change measures, and end what he calls the woke agenda.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
From sending astronauts to Mars to renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, Donald Trump has made plenty of promises. From this moment on, he has to start delivering on all these pledges he has made. Making the changes he says the country and the world needs if his presidency is to be anything like as bold and radical as he says it will be.
Well, Sarah is with me now. We were promised shock and awe on day one of the Trump presidency. We've certainly got it. Let's start with the national emergency. What does that actually mean?
So declaring a national emergency at the border means that he can send the armed forces there to try and beef up security. So that's a significant change because the president can't normally deploy troops on American soil. But he's got many other plans there as well, to continue building the wall as other ways of beefing up border security, stopping asylum for anybody who illegally crosses the border. And crucially, he wants to return to the policy he had where anybody making an asylum claim in America has to wait on the Mexican side of the border until that claim's been processed. But he's going to have to talk to the Mexican government about that before he can bring that in.
He's covered so many areas already. He's made the announcements he's going to sign these executive orders later on today, but it really does cover everything, including his what he calls the woke agenda.
Yes, we've got that announcement that he is going to say that there are only two genders in America, and that will have an impact, for instance, on trans athletes taking part in women's sports. He wants to get rid of all diversity initiatives inside the federal government as well, and a huge raft of energy measures as well. Expect to see drilling for oil in the Alaskan Natural Reserve, and he wants to stop leasing land for wind farms. He's going to change the whole energy profile of America.
Retribution is a word that has been used a lot in recent days. Very interesting what Joe Biden chose to do with the last few minutes of his presidency, issuing preemptive pardons to his family and to other people.
Yeah, the very last thing he did was to take 5 members of his family, including his brother and sister, and pardon them, not for anything they've done. In fact, he said it doesn't mean they've done anything, but just in case Donald Trump or any of his allies want to come after them and investigate them for any potential wrongdoing. Because even if you're not tried and convicted, just the fact of being investigated or prosecuted can have a huge effect on your life. So there was those family members, and then earlier today also one of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Donald Trump, and also the head of of Anthony Fauci was in charge of the coronavirus response, and all the members of the January the 6th committee gave them preemptive pardons as well. So Trump can cannot go after them.
Sarah Smith, for now, thank you. Well, 200,000 people were expected to line the National Mall here today to watch as Donald Trump was sworn in again. But with Arctic weather forecasts, that all changed at the last minute. The proceedings moved inside instead. Well, 20,000 of his supporters have packed into the Capital One Arena a mile away from here. The rest have gathered in bars and on the streets to try to catch sight of him. And our correspondent Tom Bateman has been talking to some of those hoping to see the president.
They waited 4 years and 1 night in a cold as bitter as America's divisions.
USA! USA!
And then the gates opened to the dawn of Trump 2. Kimberly Fiorello, husband John, and their 3 daughters flew from Tennessee. She volunteered during the election, working the phones, helping seal Trump's win.
We feel like the person at the top is going to be relating to everything that we deal with, whether it's, safety in the community, parents in charge of their children, an economy that works, where you keep more money in your pocket.
Donald Trump got here today by broadening his coalition. And for one day only, they fill the streets of Democrat-dominated D.C. His opponents warn of oligarchy, authoritarianism. His fans come calling for America first, the day they were told to awake to end woke.
We want to have our borders closed, and we want to know that we're safe and not just let anybody and everybody in.
Do you think Trump can actually do this? I mean, what he's talking about would cost billions and billions, could take years. There aren't necessarily the resources to do it.
We've spent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. Yeah, we can 100%.
There were 250,000 tickets issued before Donald Trump moved the inauguration indoors. Now, the sports venue that these people are queuing to watch it can only take a tenth of that number, so a lot of people are going to miss out.
Here we go, here we go.
And so they packed into the bars to see Donald Trump sworn in. His hand on the Bible, now they await the stroke of his pen.
How are you feeling?
Oh my.
Let's go! High five!
The happiest I've been in a very long time. We got our country back.
A return to power for this half of America, who have been made promises, he says, he'll deliver from day one. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Washington.
Let's take you to live pictures there. You can see President Trump, his wife Melania, and the Vice President J.D. Vance, who have just waved off Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden, as he flies off to Joint Air Base Andrews and onwards, we think, to California. But Joe Biden is about to fly out of Washington, where he has been president for the past 4 years for the last time. So those are the scenes here in Washington outside the Capitol building. Meanwhile, very many of the Trump supporters are waiting inside the Capital One Arena for their first glimpse of Donald Trump as president. 20,000 people packed in there, and Gary O'Donoghue is with them. And when is he going to be there? What are they going to see?
We're going to see him in about 3 hours' time, we think. And they set up a stage here, Sophie, that has the traditional podium where he'll make a speech from, much like he did yesterday here and indeed at the Capitol just now. But also on the stage, there's a desk and a chair and a microphone and a place for a presidential seal. So we're expecting him to sign some of those executive actions and those executive orders that he talked about in his inaugural speech at this desk in front of these 20,000 people. And by gauging their reaction during that speech just now, they're going to love that. The biggest cheer, and I've got to say this, the biggest cheer that came was when he said that they were going to return truth, biological truth, as he put it, to the federal government. In other words, recognizing only 2 genders, men and women. Much of the stuff on the border has already been factored in. People knew that was coming, but that strong message is something that went down really well here. So a lot of anticipation, a lot of people waiting to see that spectacle and to hear another one of those speeches. The same kind of campaign speech I expect we'll hear as we heard in the Capitol just now.
Well, the helicopter getting ready now to depart from the Capitol building. Beautiful day here in Washington today, wonderful blue skies, and Joe Biden's farewell to the White House. Donald Trump and his wife Melania have just waved them off from the steps of the Capitol building. They are returning indoors where they have another occasion with many more of his supporters, the people who weren't able to get inside to see him being sworn in as president. Only 600 people were able to see that in the end today. And now that helicopter preparing to take off, the final moments as Joe Biden flies out of Washington, accompanied by his wife, Jill. Well, we'll leave you there with those shots as he flies out. We'll be back shortly for some more here from Washington, but right now it's time to go back to Rita in the studio.
Sophie, thank you. The teenager accused of killing 3 girls at a dance class in Southport last July has pleaded guilty to murder on the first day of his trial. Axel Rudakubana, who's now 18, also admitted the attempted murder of 8 other children and 2 adults and a terror offence. He killed 9-year-old Alice Aguiar, Elsie Stankham, who was 7, and 6-year-old BB King. He'll be sentenced on Thursday. Judith Moritz reports.
This is Axel Rudakubana, 18 years old and guilty of murdering and stabbing children just a few years younger than he is. He was brought to court in Liverpool for the first day of his trial, with a jury being made ready. But Rudakubana had no intention of it going ahead. His face covered, asked to confirm his name, he wouldn't reply. Told to stand, he refused to get up. But then his lawyer said he wanted to change his pleas. 16 times he was asked if he was guilty or not guilty. Muffled behind his face mask, he said guilty each time.
This was an unspeakable attack, one which has left an enduring mark on our community and the nation for its savagery and senselessness. It is clear that this was a young man with a sickening and sustained interest in death and violence. He has shown no signs of remorse.
Rudakubana murdered 3 little girls, 6-year-old BB King, Elsie Stankham, aged 7, and Alice Aguiar, who was 9. 8 other children and 2 adults were stabbed too during a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. Shortly before that, Rudakubana was seen pacing up and down outside his house before catching a taxi to the scene. Despite the heat of summer, his hood is up and he's wearing a face mask. Mechanic Colin Parry saw him arrive and refused to pay the driver. He challenged Rudakubana, who got aggressive.
Well, I told him to pay the taxi. Obviously didn't know what he was going to do next door, but I said pay the taxi, and I swore at him. I said pay the taxi, and then he just told me to, well, he didn't, he just said, what are you going to do about it?
A picture's starting to emerge of issues within Axel Rudakubana's past. Neighbours have told us that the police visited the family home here on several occasions in the couple of months leading up to the attack. Now it's emerged that the week before the stabbing, he tried to return to his old school on the last day of term. It's thought to attack children as they left the building. He'd booked a taxi there, but his father managed to stop him. He'd been expelled from the school 5 years earlier after issues with violence. Dylan Pemberton's daughter was a pupil there at the same time.
My daughter had witnessed him chasing a kid with a hockey stick outside a maths class through one of the corridors, and it was apparently well known to her and her friends and to the school that he had a kill list.
After his arrest, Rudakubana was found to have a study of an Al-Qaeda training manual, and the poison ricin was discovered in a box under his bed. The BBC understands that the teenager was referred to the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme several times over his general obsession with violence. He was driven away from court a short time after entering his guilty pleas and will return to be sentenced on Thursday. Perhaps thinking of those referrals to the PREVENT programme and other dealings with the authorities that Rudy Cabana's known to have had, the Prime Minister tonight has said that he knows there are grave questions to be answered as to how the state has failed in its ultimate duty to protect the little girls that Britain, he knows, will want answers. He says the government will leave no stone unturned in pursuit of them. But he's also described the Southport stabbing as a national trauma. And talking to you now from here in the town, I can tell you that there's nowhere that feels that trauma more acutely, and today's development will add another layer of pain to those here in the town still struggling to cope with what happened.
Judith, thank you. Judith Moritz reporting there. Well, Axel Rudakubana was known to counter-terrorism police prior to this incident. Our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford is here with me. And Daniel, in fact, it's emerged that he was referred several times to the counter-terrorism PREVENT scheme, which appears to have tragically failed in this case.
Yeah, Rita, I'm afraid this wasn't an attack that came out of the blue. By my calculations, Axel Rudakubana was known to, his violent tendencies were known to 3 schools, 2 police forces, children's services, mental health services, and the government's counter-extremism PREVENT programme. All the lights were flashing on the dashboard. Although he'd had a reasonably normal early childhood, he was in drama classes in Southport. He even appeared in a Children in Need promo video. By age of 13, he was excluded from school, partly because he'd phoned Childline saying that he was going to take a knife into the school. And after he was excluded, 2 months later, he went back to the school and attacked a pupil with a hockey stick, as you heard in Judith's report there. Over the next 5 years, he was in special schools or not in school at all. He was referred to children's services. He was referred to mental health services, and 3 times he was referred to the government's counter-extremism PREVENT programme, not because of concerns about specific ideology like Islamism, but because of his general interest in violence. He's one of this new breed of young extremists who are really more interested in the violence than in the ideology. It's sometimes called mixed, unstable or unclear ideology. But either way, those violent tendencies were not picked up enough to stop him carrying out an attack which had catastrophic consequences. And just in the last few moments, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has announced that there will be a public inquiry.
Daniel, thank you very much. Daniel Sanford there. Let's go back now to President Donald Trump's inauguration and to Sophie, who's in Washington. Sophie.
Rita, thank you. Well, President Trump is now in charge. Joe Biden just flew off in his helicopter, passing right overhead us a short time ago, arcing the White House as if though he was inside, waving goodbye for one last time. Now, in his inaugural speech, President Trump detailed a string of executive actions on immigration. He says he will declare a national emergency at the US-Mexico border. In fact, he's just declared that. And the president also has plans for large-scale deportations of undocumented migrants. Let's talk to our correspondent, John Sudworth, who is in Chicago. And John, this could affect more than 10 million people. The levels of fear among immigrant communities here are very, very high at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, this blitz of executive orders that President Trump is expected to sign in the next few minutes is intended to send a message that this is going to be a radically different kind of government. Officials will be given a plethora of instructions about tightening up restrictions on the border and ramping up enforcement in communities right across America. And this city, where I'm speaking to you from, is bracing itself because in the days leading up to this inauguration, senior members of the Trump team were giving very strong hints that Chicago may be one of the first places to be the scene of high-profile, arguably made for publicity immigration raids. This part of the city has a large migrant community, and I've been speaking to Doris Aguirre. She is an undocumented migrant who has been living in America now for 25 years.
Estamos en riesgo.
We are at risk, with Trump or without him. But now, with all the news that we're hearing, we feel more vulnerable, so we are very worried.
Critics will point out that Joe Biden has deported more people in his final year in office than Donald Trump did during any of the years of his first term. And don't forget, Sophie, immigration orders can be challenged in court. These ones almost certainly will be on constitutional and on human rights grounds.
John Sudworth in Chicago, thank you. Well, Donald Trump has only just been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, but already the global impact of his second term is being felt. In a moment, we will speak to our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, who is in Jerusalem. First, though, let's speak to our political editor, Chris Mason, who is in Westminster. What impact is the Trump presidency going to have on the UK?
It's going to be really quite something, I think, Sophie. You have the man here known by his friends as Mr. Rules, and then there is Mr. Break the Rules in the White House, the lawyer and the convicted criminal, the human rights barrister and the real estate tycoon from New York. They're not exactly two peas in a pod, are they? And that's just character. Then there are policies, and so many important policies, the Middle East and Ukraine and trade and defence spending and the Chagos Islands. Take those islands in the Indian Ocean, home to a US-UK military base. The UK wants to hand them over to Mauritius. That has been paused whilst the new administration take a look at it. That could prove awkward. What about tariffs, import taxes being slapped on the UK? Can the Prime Minister persuade the President not to do that? What about defence spending? If the White House wants allies to spend much more on defence, can the UK afford it? Oh, and then there is Elon Musk, who has taken it upon himself to be less than complimentary most of the time about the Prime Minister. One card in the Prime Minister's back pocket, the prospect of another state visit, inviting the President over here to meet the royal family. Oh, and expect to see the Prime Minister go to Washington, perhaps as soon as the next couple of weeks.
And Jeremy Bowen in Jerusalem, Donald Trump back on the world stage. What impact might that now have?
Well, Sophie, this is a time of a lot of global uncertainty and upheaval. US presidents always have to deal with wars, with economic fluctuations, but now there's artificial intelligence. He's got a strategy to deal with that correctly, wrongly. He's a skeptic about climate change. America has a global adversary and equal on its way up. China, for the first time in a couple of generations. They're going to have to strain every sinew, I think, to keep up with the Chinese beyond Donald Trump as well. In terms of America's alliances, well, trying to get NATO partners to pay more, that won't hurt the alliance. But what if there's a challenge? He'll only weaken it if he steps back from mutual defense. What if Russia tries to take a slice of a Baltic state? How will he deal with Ukraine without imposing a defeat on the Ukrainians? The list continues. And the fact is, Sophie, that to face all these challenges, the US needs a measured and coherent foreign policy. And if he still tries to be a disruptor the whole time, then far from making America great again, he's going to weaken it.
Jeremy Bowen and Chris Mason, thank you. Let's get a last word from our North America editor, Sarah Smith, who is here with me. How can you sum up the significance of today, the huge moment, the new faces, not just Donald Trump, but the likes of Elon Musk, who are really very centre stage now?
Yes, and we saw some of his most controversial cabinet choices there behind him as well as he was being sworn in. I mean, it has been a moment of high drama, and that's very deliberate from Donald Trump, who wants us to see this dramatic entrance he's making with so many different proposals he wants to get enacted right here on day one. But in many ways, this is the easy bit. He's spent the last couple of years criticising the Biden administration, saying how he wants to remake America. Now he's got to start doing it, and by doing more than just signing a few executive orders. He has got a huge groundswell of support in America, but these are people who want him to deliver. He's got the mandate after a decisive victory, but he's going to have to do what he said. He's going to have to bring down prices, slow down illegal immigration in America, and really transform the country the way he promised he would.
Sarah Smith, thank you. Let's have a look right now at the weather in the UK. Here's Elizabeth Rizzini.
Thank you, Sophie. Well, all of that cold air across North America will be having an effect on our weather here in the UK, but not until later on in the week. and not in terms of temperature either. Rather, it's all about the temperature difference, producing a lot of energy within the atmosphere between that cold air, warm air across the Gulf of Mexico there, firing up the jet stream. And of course, the jet stream is that fast-moving ribbon of air high up in the atmosphere that helps to propel low-pressure systems our way, bringing wet and windy weather. Plenty of these systems waiting in the wings there. So expect a very stormy period as we head towards the end of the week. And it could stay rather stormy as we head through the weekend and into the start of next week, potentially too, for us here in the UK. But until then, it's fairly calm still. The best of the brightness and sunshine today has been across Scotland and at Northern Ireland. Plenty of cloud around still. The winds remain light overnight, and there'll still be some showery outbreaks of rain across parts of North Wales into the North Midlands, Northern England, and some showers moving eastwards across Western Scotland too. In any breaks in the cloud, there could be a touch of frost perhaps. There will be a lot of cloud around and some more mist and fog developing into tomorrow morning too. But this is Tuesday. The rain continues across North Wales, into the North Midlands, pushing into Northern England. Best of the brightness and sunshine again, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Rather grey across England and Wales. The fog, where we see it, slow to lift and clear, but some breaks, bit of brightness perhaps at times, but still rather chilly for many. Just 5 to 8 degrees Celsius and cooler than that underneath any fog that persists. And then we need to watch this area of low pressure across Iberia that will send some more showery rain, I think, across England and Wales as we head through Wednesday morning. That clears away to leave us with some sunshine. It stays calm. The winds are light, but it will turn a lot more lively later. Rita.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. Well, that is it from the BBC News at 6. We can show you live pictures from inside the Capitol building where Donald Trump is once again addressing supporters. He's in Emancipation Hall there. Many of the people who weren't able to get into the rotunda today to see him being sworn in. But there you have the President of the United States, the 47th President, Donald Trump. Plenty more from us here in Washington later on this evening at 10. But right now, we will leave you with the White House basked in sunshine. And now it is time for the news where you are. Goodbye.